The Marvel Cinematic Universe is easily the biggest cinematic franchise of all time, and in the coming years is going to become even bigger thanks to the growing expansion of the multiverse. With the promise of Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars being a buildup of nearly 20 years worth of movies and shows, if one insists on coming into these movies prepared, one must also know the strategies necessary to be prepared. Here is a comprehensive rundown of some of the best methods you can learn to become an expert in the MCU lore. Number 1. Know the timeline. With so many entries in the MCU, it's no surprise that such a vast and expansive timeline comes with so many complexities to it. For the purpose of the MCU, the easiest way to understand the timeline is through knowing when crucial MCU events take place. Now, in this case, quote-unquote, crucial is subjective, but generally the more global the scale of an event, the easier it is to understand its timeline placement. Take, for instance, the final battle in Avengers Endgame. This battle is set in the MCU year 2023, but the events that caused this battle trace back to the year 2018 by the events of Avengers Infinity War. Now, the aftermath of this battle is addressed in several MCU entries, but one of the biggest consequences, that being the departure of Captain America, is addressed greatly roughly 6 months later in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show. This sort of concept, that being that crucial events have defined buildups as well as consequences that can run through multiple MCU entries, is pivotal in order to get a better understanding of the timeline. Additionally, a lot of MCU entries take place at the exact same time, but the events of each one have nothing to do with each other. Case in point, the TV show Loki. While the show technically takes place outside of time itself, the main events of the show don't happen until the Loki variant is pulled from the main MCU universe in 2012. This means that while every event in the MCU after 2012 is taking place, Loki is working on saving the multiverse in the background of all the MCU, acting independently of every event after 2012. This concept isn't as important to know since separate events like this don't usually ever overlap, but at the same time it can be useful for keeping track of a character's story arc throughout the MCU. If you are truly interested in knowing the official timeline in depth, I'd recommend checking out the official MCU timeline book. It lays out exact dates and times of when the events of each movie and show take place, but only for movies and shows released before 2023. But overall, this is a great tool to help you better understand the timeline. Number 2, understand continuity. Continuity in the MCU is how one movie or show builds off or leads onto another movie or show. The timeline itself is actually one of the ways continuity is established, but for this segment, I'm going to be focusing on other ways the MCU builds continuity. The first major way is through post-credit scenes. As the name implies, these are scenes that come after the credits have finished rolling, and they often serve as teasers for future MCU entries. For example, the post-credit scene of The Avengers debuts Thanos, who wouldn't end up being a major threat until Avengers Infinity War 6 years later, but his inclusion at the end of The Avengers put him on people's radars for years after the release of the movie. The second major way is through the inclusion of Easter eggs. These are simple throwaway lines that are meant for the audience to chuckle at, but in some cases, they can also act as a teaser to other MCU entries. Take, for instance, this line by the Hulk in The Avengers when he's being recruited to work on the Tesseract by S.H.I.E.L.D.
What does Fury want me to do, swallow it?
This may just seem like a simple, funny line, but it is actually a reference to the MCU movie Captain Marvel, in which the Tesseract was quote-unquote delivered to S.H.I.E.L.D. through an alien cat puking it up in S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Continuity is also established through character crossovers. This one is pretty easy to understand, as every Avengers movie and most other MCU movies feature characters that are not entirely binded to their own set of movies, just going to show the interconnectedness of the entire universe. The last major way I'll mention how continuity is established is through linked repercussions. I touched on this a bit in the timeline part, but it's the idea that every big event has a consequence to it. Since we're on the topic of the Avengers, I'll mention another example about that movie involving the final battle. The final battle left a lot of destruction to New York City, leading to the establishment of organized crime and the rise of the Kingpin, who is the main villain of the Daredevil TV show, and the main plot of the show revolves around Daredevil himself trying to break down the crime empire created after the events of the Avengers. All in all, it's no question why continuity is such a crucial aspect in order to understand the MCU lore. Number 3. Know the comic books. It's no secret that all entries in the MCU are adapted from the original Marvel comics, and having a baseline understanding of what the comic book inspired each movie and show is important for two reasons: theorization and referencing. In the case of the MCU, theorization is essentially guessing what is going to be featured in an upcoming MCU project with knowing little to no details. How can this relate to the comics, you might ask? Well, let me give you an example by introducing you to the Marvel comic series Planet Hulk. This was a 2006 run of Hulk comics, which involved the Hulk crash landing on a distant planet and becoming a gladiator. When the movie Thor Ragnarok was announced in 2016, rumors immediately began to speculate that the Hulk was going to make an appearance. This was despite the fact that in 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron, he had seemingly flown off into space. This led fans to question what purpose the Hulk would serve in that movie, to which the Planet Hulk comics gave an answer to that question. Sure enough, when the trailers dropped for Thor Ragnarok, Hulk was revealed to be a gladiator on a distant planet. This is a prime example of how the original comic books can help fans speculate the plot points of upcoming movies. Now, on an additional note, the comics can also serve as reference points that were referenced by Easter eggs. For this example, let's look at the newest MCU TV show, Daredevil Born Again. In this show, the Kingpin makes a reference to a vigilante known as the Swordsman that runs around New York City. The show doesn't focus on this character at all, but this line was a reference to the original Daredevil comics in which the Swordsman was a key enemy of Daredevil. Overall, I wouldn't say that knowing the comics are a must for understanding the MCU lore, but if you can catch those minute references or be able to theorize a potential plot, it'll lead to such a greater appreciation of the MCU and all the thought that goes into every little detail. So those are some of the key methods that you can learn to become an expert in the lore of the MCU. I personally find so much fun in being able to follow along with everything the MCU presents, and also believing that it is such a rewarding experience as well. The MCU is going to do nothing but grow in the future, so if you want to be able to follow along, these are the best things that I recommend you do. Thank you for watching.